The late 1960s into the early 70s was a glorious time for the great movie star Charlton Heston because of Planet of the Apes, Omega Man, Soylent Green. But he had a few missteps. Now, this movie, with the better script and better cinematography, could have been a hit. But to try to convince the watchers that Charlton Heston could be a fading NFL quarterback at his advanced mid 40s age, the movie didn't do anything in the box office and barely got its money back. Now, if you've never heard of this movie before, be shocked. It's Charlton Heston in number one. Now, this American sport drama was released by United Artists and directed by Tom Grease. The film stars Heston as Ron Catlin, aging quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, and the beautiful Jessica Walter as his wife. Musician Al Hurt plays himself, as do several real-life members of the 68 Saints, as well as NFL media types. The football scenes were shot at the Saints' then home field, Tulane Stadium. Now, Ron Catlin once led the Saints to a championship and is heralded by his teammates, coaches, and sports writers as an all-time great. After 15 years in pro, his skills have declined and he struggles with repeated injuries, though he continues to believe that he's the best in the game. Cat tries to compensate for his failing skills with booze and an extramarital affair. Now, this is where it gets bizarre. Diana Muldaur is a beautiful lady, but Jessica Walter, my God, a gorgeous woman. And one person heckles him outside the stadium, saying, "You're not even worth the price of a ticket anymore." When the Cat, of course, who refuses an autograph, a la Reggie Jackson. Now, friend and former teammate Richie Fowler, played by a very miscast Bruce Stern, offers Cat a job with his auto leasing company, and a management position in the computer industry is also on the table. But Catlin hesitates, insisting he can still lead the squad to future glory. The associate with the computer firm, Bobby Troop, warns him not to put off making a decision. There are a lot of kids coming out of college, Cat, and they're smart kids. A year from now, I might not be able to offer you a job driving the company truck. Now, things are no better at home for Catlin. His long-suffering wife, Julie, played by Jessica Walter, threatens to leave him after too many booze-fueled outraids and late nights with other women. She begins to drift away into her own life, leading Cat to an abortive affair with Anne, played by Diana Muldaur. Now, Diana obviously did 2 Star Trek episodes before. This is before Star Trek and LA Law fame, and he made her as sort of a sexy femme fatale style. Now, Cat finally begs Julie to stay, saying everything will be all right after he leads the Saints to another title. In the next game against the Dallas Cowboys, Catlin succeeds in leading the Saints down the field, even scoring a touchdown himself. But in the end, though, he's crushed in a vital sack by 3 Cowboys players, seemingly ending his football career and possibly his very life as Catlin takes what appears to be his last breath. Julie, unable to watch, is seen leaving the stadium. Now, this movie has reappeared on Tubi in recent months, and I'll let you judge it, but a lot of wasted effort by a great cast in having Charlton Heston as a quarterback, and a lot of mistakes in the movie, and I'm going to go over a few of them. Despite having all-pro signal caller Billy Kilmer, of course, who also played the Redskins as an instructor, Charlton Heston did not make a very convincing pro quarterback. "I marvel at how skinny he was in a Saints uniform," said local DJ Bob Walker, who was an extra in the movie. "It hung on him like a cheap suit 3 sizes too big. When the cameras weren't rolling, we watched him to try to throw some passes. His receiver was 10 to 20 yards away, and his alleged passes didn't come close." Joe Wenderowski, who basically played himself in the film as the Saints center, called Heston a very sociable guy who unfortunately didn't have an athletic bone in his body. As a quarterback, he left a lot to be desired. Now, there are scenes in the movie that allude to he was playing with the Saints for over a dozen years, but the Saints didn't join the NFL until later on, so that cine didn't make any sense. Now, in the final scene where Catlin is crushed by the Dallas defense, actually portrayed by Saints players Mike Tilleman, David Rowe, and Fred Whittingham, neither Heston nor the producer felt the hit him was realistic enough, so Heston asked him to cut loose to really make it look authentic. On the second take, the trio slammed the actor to the ground, breaking 3 of his ribs. Now, number 1 was a commercial failure. The film, and particularly Heston's performance, did earn a rave review from the New York Times, who called it a consistently engrossing film. If Heston could have been better, we don't know how or why. Now, and this is a very interesting point. The music for the movie was composed by Dominic Frontieri, who was the future husband of later LA Rams owner Georgina Frontieri. Now, number one was released on VHS in the early 1980s, but was quickly deleted. MGM finally released the film on DVD on November 12th, 2015. Now, plans for the film were announced in 1966 to be made by the same team as The War Lover. Now, the NFL permitted the Saints' name and jerseys to be used, as opposed to many football films featuring pro teams with fictional names. However, this led to major historical inaccuracies in the film, particularly in flashbacks of Catlin's career. One flashback scene shows Catlin's first game as a rookie for the Saints in what had been the early 50s. But of course, like I just mentioned, the Saints were founded in 1966 and began play the following season. Another flashback shows Caitlin and the team celebrating a title victory. However, the Saints did not win a championship at any point before the film was shot, or indeed for several decades afterwards, the first title coming in 2010 at Super Bowl 46, nearly a half century after the film was made. And of course, the Saints never made the playoffs until the early 1980s, but the Saints jerseys were very photogenic. Now, the promotion of this movie was all wrong. The poster is terrible. Instead of showing kind of like a Roger Staubach throwing type style. But Charlton Heston gives a very, very, dead performance in this. Usually a quarterback is egotistical, but he's over the top. But he's flat lines style. And any given Sunday, he did appear in a very good football movie some decades later. But with the right director and the right script, it could work. Now, later on, when you saw Nick Nolte in North Dallas 40 and different people like Burt Reynolds playing a quarterback, it would work. He didn't have the charisma to play a football, just like Ken Stabler and Burt Jones and Staubach and Bradshaw and everybody else. There's a certain ego to the quarterback. Like, this would have been perfect if for 10 years later remade with somebody like Vince Ferragamo of the Rams and the Alouettes or Tom Clements, and needed that kind of. And Charlton Heston, Freudian slip, I call him Cheston. Planet of the Apes, though the monotonous tone worked. It worked in Soylent Green and the Omega Man. Didn't work here. And at the time, Heston was considered a huge science fiction action star because he was also in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. But this one, it just didn't work. But how can a man ever cheat on Jessica Walter? Jessica Walter was considered one of the most luminous and sexy actresses. Cerebral sexy, as we call it. Just didn't make any sense. And Mulder, although she's an okay actress, she's not really a sexy person. Like in our terminology as entertainment reporters, you trade up, not trade down. So I give this movie only 1.5 stars out of 4. If you want to waste an afternoon to see, you're a Saints fan, you want to see, Billy Kilmer in action or the old Saints, it's on Tubi in Canada. But like I said, I can't give it more 1.5 stars. The only reason I give it a 1.5 because the NFL games are portrayed well, almost like a low rent NFL films. Again, don't watch the movie unless you're a Heston fan because it drags. It drags. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing with our vintage 1960s movies podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, share. Thank you, and stay cool. Bye.